It was absolutely historic, tear-jerking, make the hair on your arm stand up with thrills. In the wee hours of the morning here in America, middle of the late morning in Israel, the hostages were released. We're going to show you some of the stunning images. But that moment when Air Force One actually touched down, that was something that can't be replaced. I can't wait till I show you that moment. But first, let's look at how CNN reported it. And this is kind of cool. They flew Wolf Blitzer over there, and they had a Republican strategist and on the ground organizer Scott Pressler join Wolf, which is really cool. I thought Scott was taller than that. And I'm sorry, what now? I apologize. That's Caitlin Collins. It's Caitlin Collins. She's not under studio lights. She looked a little different. It's okay. No harm, no foul. Here's how they reported it.
And welcome back to CNN's breaking news coverage as we are covering a historic moment here in Israel, because for the first time in 2 years, over 2 years, 738 days, Hamas holds no living hostages in its captivity for the first time.
Incredible moments. And isn't it weird that they don't seem happy about it? Look at Wolf. I mean, listen, maybe I'm judging these people because they're trying to be straight journalists without, but I remember the days when Chris Matthews would get a thrill up his leg because Barack Obama gave a speech. But now you've got this historic moment. They're on the scene and they're just, well, let's just report what's happening. And fine. You know what? I don't want to waste my time with the media. Here's a little bit more about those key moments when these hostages were released.
And of course, endless applause for President Trump. Endless applause for President Trump.
And when I was there, I even saw people wearing Make America Great Again hats in that crowd over at Hostage Square.
And
yeah, in fact, just wait till you see the outpouring of love and affection for President Trump. The signs, the digital signs, the banners, the chanting. In fact, there were moments when Prime Minister Netanyahu, the actual leader of that nation, his name was announced, and there was sort of a mixed reaction and tepid applause and even some boos. You know, he's got some domestic political problems there. But across the board, the love, adoration, respect, and gratitude for President Trump was incredible. And make no mistake, when a nation has an outpouring of love and respect and gratitude for a nation's leader, obviously it's going to translate to you, because he would only be our leader because you voted for him. And so this is love, this is affection, this is gratitude, this is respect from this nation and really from the entire region for you, for our country, for America. And it was palpable. In fact, as President Trump was preparing to enter their parliament, the Knesset, to deliver a historic speech to that body, they had these little hats, you know, fashioned like a MAGA hat, and it says Trump, the peace president. I don't know about you. I think Town Hall should start selling these things on our store site immediately. I'd get one, wouldn't you? Trump, the peace president, just a couple of days after the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize acknowledged that it really should have gone to Trump. Look at them up in the gallery wearing their red MAGA-style Trump, the peace president hats. The excitement was palpable. In fact, they started chanting his name half an hour before he even entered the room. Incredible. The headline, the front page of the Jerusalem Post, this was captured by our colleague Katie Pavlich from Town Hall Media, who's actually traveling with the president on Air Force One, part of the press pool. She sent this along to us. That's the front page of the Jerusalem Post. Look at the president of the World Jewish Congress. Yeah, I believe that he helped sponsor this ad, but look at that. I mean, you know, he's that big. Trump is this big. God bless the peacemaker. It's kind of cool to be on this side of the story, isn't it? As Air Force One was flying toward the airport there in Israel, this is what the beach looked like in Tel Aviv. I mean, I don't know how they did that. They captured the profile pretty well, too. there's no doubt in the country of Israel who's responsible for this and who deserves all of the credit. It's a remarkable thing. You know, when you think about it, Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton, two Democrat presidents, got a lot of credit for forging a summit of sorts. Carter with the Egyptians, where Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize for that peace agreement. And it was monumental, by the way, and it's held pretty much since the late 70s. And then, of course, Clinton with Yasser Arafat and the PLO to form what is now known as the Palestinian territories, where they basically, the Oslo agreements gave them autonomy for the most part since the late 90s. Of course, that autonomy turned into Gaza becoming the Hamas cesspool that it is. And it never was a lasting peace because it allowed terrorist organizations to fester in both the West Bank and notoriously now Gaza. But Clinton and Carter both received huge credit and accolades for forging those peace agreements. The Oslo Accords also led to a Yasser Arafat Peace Prize, and he's a terrorist. But here, there's no sharing of the credit. It's all falling squarely on the shoulders of one man and his administration. And President Trump appropriately did a bit of a victory lap. Here he is on Air Force One with the press pool, the media pool, on his way to Jerusalem last night.
On China, are you considering walking that back?
Who are you with?
Politico, Dasha Burns, sir.
Dasha Politico. Politico's gone bad. They've been so wrong about everything. Politico. Politico has been so wrong about everything. Let's get somebody else to ask some questions. You mind? Is that all right? Politico.
I love that on two levels. First, just hammering Politico is great. But also, did you notice Dasha Burns? She's the blonde one with like the slick back straight hair. And she's got this podcast. And it's obvious that Politico's been pushing Dasha Burns out there to be sort of the new superstar face. And trust me, Dasha's loving that. Did you notice when he's like, who are you? And she couldn't just leave it at Politico. She had to say, I'm Dasha Burns. Don't you know who I am? Watch again.
It's fake news.
On China, are you considering walking that back?
Who are you with?
Politico, Dasha Burns, sir.
Dasha Politico. Politico's gone bad. They've been so wrong about everything. Politico. Politico has been so wrong about everything. Let's get somebody else to ask some questions. You mind? Is that all right? Politico's fake news.
Politico's fake news. This is a man in full. This is a man who has been indicted multiple times, convicted multiple times, overturned, of course. This is a man who's been impeached twice, and now he's forging peace deals as he's heading over to Israel. He's leaning in there, talking to the press. He's like, Dasha Burns, Politico, you're fake news. We'll move on. It's a beautiful thing. All right. Which brings us to this moment. Hold on tight. Air Force One, everyone goes back to their seats, coming in for a landing there at the airport in Jerusalem. And, of course, as is typical protocol, there's no other flights going in and out as Air Force One is on its approach and it lands. The entire airport is locked down. And everybody, all the pilots, all of the people, the personnel, whatever, they're all plugged in because there's only one plane that's coming into the airport. So everyone hears it's usually a pretty momentous occasion. And here is what it sounded like from the air traffic control tower in Israel as President Trump and Air Force One touched down.
Air Force One, this is Ben-Gurion Tower. Welcome to the State of Israel, Mr. President. Your visit carries deep meaning for our people in these times. Thank you for our friendship and the unbreakable bond between our nations. God bless America, God bless Israel, and the friendship between our peoples.
And thank you very much, Air Force One.
I'm a sucker for this stuff. I'm an absolute sucker for this stuff. I want to play it again. And I want to, we've got to check with Katie Pavlich and I want to know if on Air Force One, they ran the feed from the tower onto the speakers in the plane so everybody could hear it. Not sure. I want to find out about that though. But you want to hear it one more time? Listen to it again.
Air Force One, this is Ben-Gurion Tower. Welcome to the State of Israel, Mr. President. Your visit carries deep meaning for our people in these times. Thank you for our friendship and the unbreakable bond between our nations. God bless America, God bless Israel, and the friendship between our peoples.
And thank you very much, Air Force One.
You know, it's moments like this, sadly, because I am who I am and because I follow the news on a minute-by-minute basis and I'm so obsessed with politics, sadly. It's a moment like this where instead of just soaking that in and enjoying it and recognizing how great it is to be respected and to have gratitude expressed in such a way, in such an important and yet humble way from our friends in Israel, it's moments like this. I'm sorry, I cannot help it. I immediately think what life could have been if Kamala Harris had won this election. I immediately stop and think, what if Joe Biden hadn't melted down at that debate and he stayed and somehow miraculously stayed as president? But would that have ever happened with Joe Biden in Air Force One? Would that have ever happened with Kamala Harris as commander-in-chief, leader of the free world, the president of the United States in Air Force One? Would any of the events that we've experienced for the last 10 months even come close to being if those two were somehow still in charge or that party was still in charge? God, we are fortunate. And just like the people of Israel expressing gratitude, we should all express gratitude for being able to have dodged that bullet and been able to live through these first 10 months of this presidency. There's more to come, don't get me wrong, but this really is an extraordinary time. I hope you recognize that. I hope you see that. And isn't it great to be on the side that elected this administration to do its job? After touching down, the president was brought directly to the Knesset. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, gave the opening speech, and it was a good one, a very good one. At one point, he said that there has never been a greater friend to Israel than President Donald Trump. And he paused for a minute in Trump-like fashion, and he said, and it isn't even close. Very Trumpian of him, actually. It was met with huge support from a Knesset that hasn't really supported the prime minister a whole lot over the last several years. Then something extraordinary happened. The minority leader, the opposition leader, they called him in a parliament setting, think Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries merged into one. He delivered his remarks, and it was almost exactly the same as Prime Minister Netanyahu. I say that it's extraordinary because we Americans were able to witness a democratically elected body in a free society, one of the only ones over there in the Middle East. It's one of the reasons why we need to keep them as an ally. We were able to see the opposition leader join with the majority, the prime minister, and sing from the same hymnal about what's most important to the people of that country. It's like we've lost sight of that here in this country. Do you ever notice that if Trump is for something, the Democrats have to knee-jerk automatically be opposed to it? Even this peace deal, you saw some people emerging over the weekend who either couldn't give him credit, had to say, well, you know, Biden really set this up, or in some way just stay silent. I mean, frankly, there are some people who were claiming they wanted peace in the Middle East and they wanted the war to be over. And now that there is peace in the Middle East and the war is over, they're not saying a damn thing because I don't think they really did want peace. They wanted to inflict pain on Israel. They wanted, from the river to the sea, the Palestinians to end up wiping Israel off the map. They're not happy today that the war is over. They're not happy today that the hostages are free. They're not happy today that Hamas has now begun disarming because they don't want Hamas to be disarmed. They're on Hamas's side. Over here, for some reason, our democratically elected representatives can't quite figure it out to actually set aside political differences and celebrate something undeniably great. But over there, they could do it. You had both leaders of the majority and the minority speak out and say basically the same thing. This is brilliant. This is wonderful. No, there was never a genocide. No, there was never forced starvation. We were on the right side of this story. We were the victims, and we defended ourselves and defeated our enemy. That's what Israel said today. And they thank President Trump for finally working to get the allies and the Arab nations in that region to come together and forced Hamas to release the hostages. Incredible diplomacy. It was almost perfect until during President Trump's remarks in the outer fringes of the Knesset, they had basically their version of the Squad. They had their version of Rashida Tlaib. They had their version of Ilhan Omar and Zohran Mamdani, who stood up and disrupted his speech with a giant banner that said genocide. But I want you to see how these things are handled in the Israeli Knesset.
להוציא אותו מהאולם. להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה. החוצה.
This Knesset member, please expel this Knesset member.
להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף. להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם.
Expel Knesset member Kasif out of the hall. Please expel him immediately.
Sorry for that, Mr. President.
I'm
That was very efficient. So back to Steve.
He had been talking about Steve Witkoff, who helped negotiate this deal. I felt like he was all right. I'm just gonna. I could be wrong. I have no way of knowing. But I've watched this man for over 10 years. You saw the look on his face after he said that was very efficient. Look at. You can tell his brain is working. He's thinking. I think he wanted to riff, because here's the thing: this is a man who has not been able to give a State of the Union speech before a joint session of Congress without something stupid happening, without Nancy Pelosi ripping the speech or doing this thing to him, or with other people standing up. Remember earlier this year when Congressman Al Green stood up and started shaking his cane at him and started yelling impeachment, impeachment, right? There's always some demonstration in the middle of the House of Representatives when he's giving a speech to the joint session of Congress. Look at his face. Don't you think he was this close to saying, wish we were that efficient in Congress. I wish we could handle our members of the House of Representatives the way you guys are handling your Knesset. But I think he thought better of it. See, everybody who thinks that Trump is just, he has no filter, he said, no, what you're witnessing right there is Trump's filter at work. He's, I'm telling you, I can't prove it. I will never know for sure, but just watch it again.
So back to Steve.
I am telling you, he just thought better of it. He was going to say something else, and he thought better of it. All right. That was one of my favorite moments of the speech. The other favorite moment, as he was calling out the members of the American delegation. And by the way, for everybody else, everybody who tells me that Trump is a megalomaniac and an egotist and a narcissist, I mean, he is a New Yorker. And he did work in television. So, I mean, it's understandable if he's all of those things. But have you noticed this year that he has been incredibly magnanimous in sharing praise and in singling out and elevating other people in his cabinet and other people and the great work that they do? Have you noticed that? And by the way, the contrast from the first term may be because this is the first time he's got a cabinet who's actually doing great things, working with him and actually governing the way he is projecting his confidence and power in the executive branch. But he specifically called out Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And what he said about Marco Rubio, just watch.
A man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, you know, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him. And then we have...
He's only been Secretary of State for 10 months. And President Trump is saying that he's going to go down in history as one of the best. And I got to tell you, if he ends his tenure as Secretary of State today, he's got a record to compare with some of the best, right? I mean, and by the way, once again, great insight into Trump and how he deals with people, even adversaries, if you think about it. It's true. If you go back to 2016, it was probably Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, to a certain extent, that were the fiercest competitors in that primary. Marco Rubio on the debate stage and in his stump speech probably was the harshest on Donald Trump through the New Hampshire primaries, and I think he survived through one or two more states. But this tells you something about how Trump ends up respecting people who actually push back and fight. He respects people who actually go toe-to-toe with him and give him as good as he gives, but then ends up saying, okay, we had our fight, you won, let's figure out how we can work together. Ditto for Ted Cruz, who's probably been the most important voice in the United States Senate since 2017, when Trump was first sworn into office. So it really is insight into how Trump operates, how he, brings a machine gun to a knife fight and is willing to throw everything he can to win. But then once he's won, he's like, okay, now can we figure out how to work together? I know we're not used to that in American politics, but we should probably start getting used to it, shouldn't we? As far as Marco Rubio being the best Secretary of State, let's, listen, if you're comparing him to Jake Sullivan in the last administration, and, Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan was National Security Advisor, but they were both disasters. I think that's a slam dunk, no-brainer, obviously. And then you go back to Trump's time as Secretary of State, and you had Rex Tillerson, remember him, for a few months, and then eventually Mike Pompeo. And then Pompeo was able to work on the Abraham Accords, but really that seemed to be Jared Kushner doing most of the heavy lifting. And you got to give it to Marco there. And then in the Obama administration, you had, you had Hillary Clinton and you had John Kerry. And if you look at their accomplishments, they... I think he might be right. I think Marco, at least here in the 21st century, Marco Rubio is right up there on the short list, and they're just getting started. What a day in Israel. What a day in world history, and it's a pretty good day to be an American.